Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ubuntu Touch Q&A, the UBports Foundation's show discussing the development of Ubuntu Touch and our community's questions. This is episode 116, streamed live on January 29th, 2022. My name is Dalton, and joining me this week are Alfred.
Hello.
And Florian.
Hello.
Hi, folks. Let's do it once more with feeling. And
Emotions.
then we'll decide what to do after this someday. Emotions? Emotions.
Emotions.
Hey, if you like this and you want to see if your device is supported by Ubuntu Touch, it is some pretty damn cool software. Head over to devices.ubuntu-touch.io. If your device is not on the list, it's going to need a custom image made for it. And you can go to the porting documentation at docs.ubports.com/porting to learn more. Our audience says that developers don't have any emotions, and I don't think that's true. Case in point, this week, Clickable 7 has been released. Clickable 7 is the long-awaited upgrade to Clickable, which brings improvements all over the config files. You can use YAML now. An entirely new format, which you can be migrated straight to with a tool from the Clickable team. The migration guide and the migration tool are both up on the Clickable documentation. We've talked about Clickable 7 before. There's a lot of new features here and a lot of great stuff. Excellent work to the Clickable team. I like seeing this. I've talked about this before. This is one of the best things for our community because it makes it so easy to get started with app development.
True.
It's not quite close to file new project in Xcode. But Clickable Create is pretty close on the command line. It also has way more settings than
we can ever use or utilize.
Yeah, but even Xcode doesn't give you as many options when you're starting a project.
Hmm.
You get to run into those later, after you have already built your huge project, and everything is broken now.
There are
Excellent
a lot of
work
memes.
to the Clickable team.
There are a lot of memes around Xcode, but not around Clickable. That should give you a thought or two about how great it is.
Clickable, great.
Click
All right.
on click it. Clickable.
Alfred, let's talk about what's been happening in Xennial this week.
Yeah, sure. So, Lomiri and all the things that basically are visible, usable by the user, are very much improved now. So, for a start, in Lomiri, the shell, we have rotating lock screen. Very cool, very nice. Whenever you forget to lock your phone to stay in a certain rotation orientation, it actually allows to flip the lock screen now, as Dalton has shown in a previous Q&A long time ago. It's now finally here. So that's good.
Excellent work, Capsia.
Exactly. Thank you to Capsia for that one. Then the next one is interactive blur. So I have a confession to make. I was a little worried about seeing this operating system like it always looks the same and it always has those this wallpaper stuck behind the drawer. But I also acknowledge that it was due to performance reasons mostly. And what we do have now is, depending on the port, depending on whether the porter himself or themselves decide to enable that feature, when you pull out the drawer, maybe you cannot see it right now, but
it's translucent.
It's translucent a bit.
It's not translucent. It's blurred.
It's blurred and it's beautiful. So
it blurs what was behind it.
Exactly. That looks way better. Yeah, right. And due to the fact that animations might pull the performance down again, it's definitely needed to be set by the porter rather than the user, because the porter might have to test it first, enable it, and not give a bad experience to the end user in the end. So, but it's there, and it's there for the next OTA, for the Pixel 3a at least, and I've been told a few devices try to enable it themselves too.
Yes,
I remember when we started working on the Unity 8 transition for 1604, and it had that interactive blur enabled. We ran on a Nexus 5, and it went at 2 frames per year. It felt so bad turning it off because it looked so good. But
Yeah.
we had to do what was best.
Right.
I'm glad that it's back on high-performance devices.
Exactly. So that's the second of the Lomiri thing, or that's all the Lomiri changes that went in. There's also an auto suggest feature now in the dialer. So when you press the dialing keys based on on the letters below them, it actually gives you an auto suggestion about a certain contact that you might want to call, or the potential contacts that fit the name that you're trying to enter through the number pad. And that's very good. I noticed this feature popping up in Devil, and it's like, hey, cool! Now I can do this again. So I'm very happy about this. And yeah, I mean, that gives a big roundup for the next OTA that we're going to release. We also have a few changes for Morph browser lined up. That is, first of all, WebGL support is now finally in. Sometimes on some devices, on most devices. Not everyone, not every single device. For example, the BQ E4.5 and the E5 are going to have a big problem with that because they don't like the GPU features enabled in the Morph browser now, which also causes them to not use the camera. So those two devices are probably not going to see the camera support enabled anytime soon. But for every other device, that's something. And WebGL and camera. Plus, what I've also noticed when swiping away those tabs from the tab view, it also looks a little more fluid because the CPU is not as involved anymore as it used to be. And it looks good swiping away a few tabs on the phone. Just saying, I like doing those things.
Okay.
So that's all for the device-independent things. Something that I've been working on the side is the Pixel 3a again. I can finally say that the Pixel 3a, first of all, the best thing to do with the Pixel 3a is, Dalton?
Buy 5 of them.
Because now it is possible to make full use of the device, including a fixed landscape keyboard, fixed battery life, and the final bug that was annoying me so much, you can now change voice call volume. And it doesn't blow your ears out anymore. So I made this one little...
Thanks.
Yeah, finally. I made this one little joke. If you ever intend to give Mark Shuttleworth a Pixel 3a and... in an attempt to blow his ears out. Doesn't work anymore. But now he can give it in a good, well-intentioned way.
It just doesn't blow his ears, it will blow just his mind. So perfect.
Right, exactly. That was the whole point.
Dalton cringe.
Blows your mind, not your ears.
Well, marketing for amateurs ends up like that, you know. I'm
Right.
sorry.
If anyone runs with that, they're getting banned.
But yeah, and there's also a little thing about OTA 22 being delayed, and I think Florian wants to take that one.
Yeah, we're a little bit sorry about that. So we found basically a regression bug in the Devil channel. And Alfred said, what should we gonna do? We block RC, we stop the press, we stop the pipelines. I said, yes, no problem. Create an issue, flag it with critical RC, everything's fine, it will not slip into RC, which was wrong because our logic is the flag needs to be called critical devil. Because on the next day, the bug was migrated into RC channel and everybody that was on RC got that. So we amplified the problem a bit. Basically, there are some breaking changes in the ABI for some Qt or QML components that we try to introduce to change backend and middleware for context and calendar synchronization. Long story short, apps are breaking. So we stopped it, at least in RC. We stopped the OTA release for the moment, and we're going to fix it as soon as possible. The fixes are already SPRs. They just need a small review and should go in, and then a little bit of rebuilding here and there, and one more migration of everything into RC on probably Monday or so, I don't know. So bear with us, but yeah, that was a communication fault that I take on my shoulders because I was just looking at my device on the go, Alfred running in circle like, what you gonna do, block everything? He said, yes, do this, fine, I managed it. No! So, but these things can happen. At least
Can
it's
happen,
called, to remind you, while Devil can break daily, RC can break weekly, of course, because it's release candidate channel. So also a release candidate sometimes can have a bug that's not so nice. So
Risk is
sorry
far
for
lower
that.
than daily, though.
Yeah, the risk is lower. And also
Now,
thinking
neither
about...
of you will ever make the mistake of using the wrong label ever again.
No,
You
I will
think
not
so?
do this anymore. Anyway, I have some ideas around that because that was a good thing to think about it. And we might have a few small adjustments to the channel and RC philosophy. So I will come back with something in a few days, weeks, or next Q&A. I don't know. Something like this.
Good luck.
Yeah, but other than that, we are testing already the features. It's basically feature frozen. There is not much that can go in now anymore. We have everything on our project board. Start of testing will be called out as soon as possible. Probably next week, actually, with the next RC.
Can I show you what my team's been doing?
Sure.
My favorite. Look at this. So, Ubuntu Touch
Quemo.
based on Ubuntu 2004 running in Quemu.
A wild Quemu appears.
Yeah, how can we say Quemu as terrible as possible so everyone corrects us? QEMU. This is what we've been working on. So we've got our virtual machine images kind of working again. We have Ubuntu Touch based on Ubuntu 2004. We have apps. We have indicators, more importantly, including keyboard notifications, not showing up in the top bar because nothing's connected to it right now. Rotation lock, transfer and location aren't here yet. Bluetooth, network, sound, battery, daytime. We don't know why
nice.
session isn't working yet, but they're all here and they're working. This is the real indicator. This is not mock stuff.
Oh.
We also have several apps in and working, and this is stuff that was just completed this week. The apps, that is. So, dialer app, here we are. We've got no network. It happens sometimes on a virtual machine. System settings, functional. Screen's a little big. I tried to fix some of the scaling, but we've got something set wrong, which is to be expected at this point. Messaging app, here we are. Also, wrong size. Why don't I just fix that real quick? Demos never go well.
Ouch.
Yay!
Yeah!
Ouch.
Yay!
My favorite. Messaging app.
It works.
Here we are. We've got contacts as well. And these are real apps.
That's not a real number.
That's not a real number.
Oh.
That's why it's 555. Unroutable number. Yes.
That's Indiana Jones's number.
Yeah. We're here. We've got stuff going on, and it's getting better every week. This is the virtual machine image. I could also be running it on the Pixel 3a, but the problem is it's really hard to screencast the Pixel 3a.
Right.
This has been my team's work.
Great.
And exciting.
Great. Just this day, I sent a message on Twitter because there was some postings about oh yes, Ubuntu Touch was so great back then, and so on and so on. And then I just took a screen capture, but now I can take the video part of that recorded video and say, look guys, this is 2004 running on the Quemu, but it's okay.
Quemu.
Quemu. That's how we would
Quemu.
say. Quemu.
So
It
this
sounds
is
like
excellent
emu.
work by our team, by Guido, by Mike, and Robert, and Rachanan. All great work going on here. I'm really
All right.
excited to see the fruits of our efforts. And this has been one of the first times where it's all come together in an easily buildable and runnable way. So these things have been happening, and I've been telling you about them every 2 weeks, but now I can just run a command to get this QEMU window up.
Oh yeah, why not build a device called QEMU? That would be fun.
No. What's wrong with you? We're not doing that. I suppose, though, we can bring things back to Xenio real quick for our app roundup. Our first app that we're talking about this week is Passes by Patrick Jane. Passes is a really cool application. It allows you to import PKASS files from emails or tickets and display them much like the iOS Wallet app will do. So things like Genius Bar appointments, because we know all of you have those. Your flights with Lufthansa. Sandwich cards. What is this? Is this Subway? Is this from Subway? Oh, that's cool. Can all be brought into this wallet application Passes and displayed on the go. Cool stuff. We also have Simple Print, which is a bit of an experimental app, but it allows you to find discoverable network printers and print to them JPEGs or PDFs, possibly some other things. PostScript reader. It's pretty crazy, but it works for some printers. It's pretty cool stuff.
And before somebody asks, yes, there was printing support at the beginning of 1604. We tried to bring this in. Then we couldn't boot the 1+1 anymore because the cache partition was too small when we just blew everything up. So we removed printing support again, and now it's still in a drawer, which has the nice feature of not only printing on those few discoverable printers, but you could basically install a printer driver locally, because it's just CUPS backend there, and But it also had just a feature for PDF files, more or less. So if you really want to have more printing options, that thing would need some work. So yeah, we could bring it maybe back someday and try to minify whatsoever. But ultimately, I would say it would need to print from more sources. PDF alone is not enough, unfortunately.
Yeah, but this is fun.
Sure. Try it out. Simple Print. Maybe you find printers in your vicinity or in your neighbor's network. You can send them a greeting card. Did I say something? No. No, not about neighbors in your network.
Florian.
Yeah. It's totally not possible that this ever has happened here. So yeah. All right.
All right. Now that Florian has given his confession. There's no easy way to transition to this. Let's just go into it. So, I posted yesterday on the UBports forum that I have ended my contract with the UBports Foundation. Therefore, my role as development manager within the UBports community is now ended. There have been questions about this as early as 2 hours ago, or as late as 2 hours ago, as to what this is going to do for the teams of the UBports Foundation, and what the reasons are. I go into detail on that over in the forum, so I don't really want to say it all again, because I spent some time writing this, and I think it speaks for itself. So why don't I just throw that in live chat, and we'll throw it down in the video description.
Sure.
But this is it, at least for now. I'm going to take some time to myself. I'm going to take some time and recharge. And then we're going to go from there. We've got some cool stuff coming up in the UBports Foundation membership committee, which I am still responsible for, that you will be seeing soon. Okay, we're planning on elections of the membership committee and the board of directors of the UBports Foundation. These things are unrelated, but they are happening at the same time. Well, yeah, I go into full detail over in the forum. It's probably better just to read that to see what's going to change. I think it's generally going to be for the better in the short and the long term. Well, at least in the long term, maybe not in the short term, but I think this is going to be a good thing long term for Ubuntu Touch.
Yeah, it's a sad moment, I must say. Dalton was there from the beginning, more or less, even at the time when this was just Happy Porters community with no intentions to take over world domination in the operating system space. And we're still trying to do, but of course we failed so far to be more relevant than we always have been in the last, 2 or 3 years, with small growth, but steady still. And it's really hurting because you have all the deep knowledge about all these parts, and it's hard to replace knowledge. It's always easy to replace, let's say, labor, workforce, where somebody just cuts a tree, another one can cut the tree. But the problem is,
same finesse.
Yeah,
no, you're right. This is knowledge work, so it's not quite as easy. But
it is really.
We have a great community behind us.
Yeah.
And I know that this is going to leave a vacuum where faces you think are unlikely right now will come up to become a part of the community in a way that you never thought they would. And honestly, that excites me more than it scares me.
Because as probably you cannot be replaced by a single person now. It takes a few people to step up and say, I want to do this, I want to do that, and maybe.
The things I was doing shouldn't have been done by a single person. So yes, that will be good.
And I would like to add something to that too. Thank you, Dalton. Thank you for your service, and I will celebrate your future with a little bit of Falco here. All right.
Falco beer. I take just plain water today. No fancy.
I don't even know who Falco is.
I'll show you later.
Okay, thank you.
It's a little bit of analogy also because Falco was a super cool guy and then he just suddenly left. So yeah. But don't try to be like Falco. Yeah? I mean, he was. We're a small country. He was the only pop star that actually came to US. Oh yeah, but actually people in US know who is Falco. So ask your neighbors.
That's not me. Oh yeah, my neighbors. The empty log cabin. No problem.
All right.
Thank you for your service, Dalton.
Thanks a lot.
And thank you to everyone who's helped us over the years and will continue to. Ubuntu Portugal podcast says he was a musician. Yeah,
right.
I grokked that. Thank you. From Alfred attempting to sing his songs before we started.
Oh, yeah.
So, thank you to everyone who has made this possible. Oh, that feels like a bad transition to make, but I'm going to do it anyway. Thank you to everyone who makes it possible for us to create Ubuntu Touch. So, that includes our platinum level sponsors, Smooze, Vala, and Pine64. What a rough transition. As well as our community sponsors on Patreon, including Kenneth the Drew, Akisika Aho, Bogdan, Robin Hood, A. Thiel, James Bishop, Sergio Shvetsov, Tixia, Gardner and Associates Consulting Incorporated, Michael Kellner, Samuel Packard, and The Letter J. This episode was brought to you by The Letter J. You can find all of our sponsors over at ubports.com/sponsors if you'd like to learn more about any of them. And if you would like to join them and help make Ubuntu Touch possible today and into the future, head over to ubports.com/donate or help us out in some other way. All of you have a unique talent that I know you would be able to help us somehow. You might think that's not possible. It is. All people are useful. All right, why don't we take some questions from our forum this week over at forums.ubports.com. And Florian, why don't you start with Tara's?
Following on Brock Brixie.nl, why installers are needed for FDA. As there is a UBports installer available, what would be the effort to support encryption of user data on supported devices kernel? Thanks in advance. We had a few of those questions over the years.
Yeah. I mean...
An old classic.
An old classic.
It depends on whether I've made some thoughts. I've thought about this very deeply, and I'm not sure if full disk encryption or file-based encryption would be the solution for us. It depends on the situation that you're in. There are certain pros and cons for everything. File-based encryption, for example, would allow us to boot into the session very far into the booting process, so that the user can actually enter the unlock code or use fingerprint or whatever minus the fingerprint thing right now. Yeah, just thinking out loud right now. But it would allow the user to enter the PIN code, and then it would encrypt everything with the key that is associated with that. So there are certain pros and cons to full disk encryption versus file-based encryption, but the UBports installer could be instructed to make use of those functionalities for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think it's really interesting with full disk encryption because Ubuntu Touch does not necessarily need it. It's for the same reason that Android doesn't need full disk encryption. You have to separate out what you're trying to protect here. The reason why we use full disk encryption on regular Linux distributions is because the system and your user data are on the same storage, and there's no way to verify if either of those have been tampered with. There's no way to verify if your encryption has been tampered with either, to be fair, but it's highly unlikely that someone's going to be able to tamper with your encryption to add, say, malware rather than just corrupt your system and make it unusable. If we look at what we're doing with a read-only root file system, we know exactly what the contents of Ubuntu Touch should be at build time, which means that it should be possible to verify that the image is as it was when it was built. Android and iOS do this, and that is why they don't need to encrypt their system data. Well, their operating system data. They do, however, encrypt any writable stuff. There are two levels of encryption. There is the system's encryption, which is tied to generally something inside of the system on chip, such as its serial number that you will never be able to learn, which is then used to derive a key, which means that if you were to take the storage out of, say, this Pixel 3a running Android, this one is not running Android right now, but if it was, if you took the storage out of that and slapped it into another Pixel 3a, it would be completely unreadable because that data is tied to that processor via a process that has knowledge only that silicon has. And then, on top of that, you also have your user encryption. And that has a key which is derived from your PIN. And that's why it's required that you enter your PIN when you reboot Android or iOS. Because both of those, it's the same data that only this system on a chip knows. So even if you took out your storage, put it in another Android phone, assuming this is implemented correctly, neither your user data or your system data would be readable. And your user data would be especially unreadable because both the information that the CPU in your phone knows and your PIN are required to decrypt the data. This is the kind of full encryption that I believe we should be shooting for, basically no matter what, rather than simply full disk encryption. Because that means that we're verifying that the Ubuntu Touch installed on your phone is the same one that we built. You modifying it is going to cause a lot of problems with that, but we'll figure out a way. And additionally, that your data is protected and the system's data is protected to a reasonable level.
And for those types of things that we're verifying the system partition is important. I've made a blog post about this. I've talked about this in the past already. It is something that we could solve, and it would not give us the encryption for free, but it would be one prerequisite. Encryption itself would be one requisite to implement something like the verifying boot up of the system partition, so that you can, as a user, finally boot up the phone without it complaining that it is insecure.
Correct. And yeah, I also have a blog post on this. Let's link both of them in the video description, eh?
Sure.
The endless conundrum of creating a secure Pine phone. It's a lunker of a post. You will be reading it for quite a while, but it covers all of this, and I would highly recommend taking a look at that if you're interested in full disk encryption, securing the devices, all of that. That's a very good point. Forgetting about backups for a second, Dalton, this type of system encryption makes it really hard to recover data from such a device. That is true.
Which is kind of the point.
Exactly the point.
Well, but we also must say at the current stage where sometimes Ubuntu Touch could lead to a situation where you cannot access your data easily and you want to move it quickly to a new device to be continuously and so on and so on. So a user making the choice to encrypt has also to make a choice that the data must be synced somewhere else. If it's a phone book and a calendar and so on.
My friend just got a Galaxy S21 last week, put all of his data on it, upgraded it to a new version of Android, and his PIN no longer worked, so he had to completely wipe the phone. So we're not alone in having those issues. This is a sliding scale. We're more comfortable knowing that the data is unrecoverable than we are with knowing the data is recoverable, even in the event of a bug, rather than someone stealing your phone. It keeps you safer in general. Of course, it's your choice, but the default should be to secure you more and get your backups done so that you don't lose your data.
That's true.
That's kind of what the goal is here. Okay. I think we can do one more. Wait, I can read this. Alfred's answering it. Hello, says Hugehead. I hear often when you talk about updates and news that you say this and that is related to Android 9 devices or 7 or, Lord forbid, 4. This confuses me as I thought Ubuntu Touch is an independent system. Why is it based on any Android my phone had? Can you help me with this?
Yeah, sure. So, you might have noticed that for Android-based devices, we are actually using the Android-based kernels and Android drivers. On the Pine phone, that is not the case, which basically proves the point that it is an independent system that can stand on its own. But for Android-based devices specifically, we need some way to talk to the hardware that is built into the phone, basically. GPU, modem, audio drivers, whatever. We need those drivers and those hardware abstraction layers. And the easiest way was to take the Android adaptation and make Ubuntu Touch sit on top of it, basically, so that Ubuntu Touch can make use of the hardware through the Android abstraction layers. And that has been working pretty well for now. And it's still working pretty well. And for Android 9 devices specifically, we do require you to flash a certain version of Android because the drivers are not part of the system that we are building ourselves anymore, but they're provided by the vendors, which has its pros and cons, don't get me wrong, but it is the way that things are working nowadays. And that's based on what Google did with Project Treble. Basically separating out services that are required for hardware enablement, separating those out into a so-called vendor partition, and the system partition is what contains the operating system, or for us, the Halium parts, the minimal layer that we require to access the hardware. That's basically it in a nutshell. Yeah.
I put up this very, very old but very still valid picture. If you want to throw this into the cast for a second.
Sorry.
Yeah, that one. So it's very nice to see basically that you have a Linux kernel on top, you have communication. Actually, there are some errors missing here on the right side, to be honest, because some parts are also talking directly with kernel on our side.
Yeah.
But all the applications and middleware stuff that we have need to have this gateway through these Android services because some of those things are just not open source, many actually, and we have to take the binaries as they were released for that device, more or less. And so also the old kernel version, which might sound a little bit strange to you, but some of the devices are still running on kernel 3.4, and we cannot change it easily. A lot of discussion going up and down, some things about mainlining, upgrading kernels, and so everybody who wants to do this work, welcome. Yeah, but the core team for sure has no time to upgrade kernels on all the devices. It's simply not possible. Yeah, it's a huge daunting task, and so
the ideal situation here is to have the drivers created by the vendor in the Linux kernel upstream.
Right.
That allows us to do is just take the Linux kernel by Torvalds, install it on the device, tell it what the configuration of the device is via device tree, mostly because API doesn't exist on ARM, and have it use those drivers. That is the ideal solution. We're not there, and it's unlikely we'll be there soon, because Android was designed specifically to get around that little problem.
Right.
Android was designed to create a barrier between the Linux kernel and the hardware in the device, so that the drivers that actually had to be open sourced by the vendor were as small as possible, and then they could write their own proprietary stuff on top. And then Android acts as a shim to resolve any licensing problems. So that's why we have Apache 2 licensed Android working on the GPL licensed kernel, and none of us see any benefit from that.
Right.
No.
So this is the situation we're in. There are mainline devices, for example, the Pine phone. This is just its motherboard. Don't ask why its motherboard is out right now. That's the Pine phone Pro motherboard. That are designed with hardware that is already in the Linux kernel with drivers. We, as distributions, still need to create and ship the firmware for those devices. So it's not exactly like just taking an Ubuntu ISO and jamming it into your phone yet. But I think we'll get there someday. It'll just be a while and with a lot of work.
Yeah, and I would really like to say that, I mean, someone in the chat brings up a very important point, Amy in this case. Everyone wants the result, but no one wants to do the work, and I believe that has to do with the mainlining efforts. It is hard. We are focused on an operating system, shell, and services, and basically a full OS, rather than mainlining devices ourselves. But I personally have the utmost of respect for everyone who does this, who tries to mainline most of the device, or as many devices as possible. I'm in contact with a few of them, and I really like talking with them. So those are great people. It's just not something that we can do ourselves easily right now.
Right. Why is the Pine phone motherboard out, says Tiger Pro. Well, since you asked, I want to see if that chip right there was actually there or not. I'm pretty sure that's an SPI flash. I haven't actually looked it up yet. It's made by Silicon Kaiser, which is kind of a funny name.
Silicon Kaiser.
But yeah, I was just making sure that was there. I don't know if it's there on all motherboards is the problem. But that would be the solution to jamming a USB stick in your phone and booting from it. Which sounds scary, and is. But for the audience is a really good benefit. I think that'll do it.
Yeah,
I think
just
that does it.
One small thing on top of that, because we have so many devices in our devices page, and I'm again reminding the audience here, we will probably slim down the range of devices that are fully supported with all the bells and whistles from the core team. We are thinking about how to do this in a way that it doesn't hurt anyone, and if you had bought recently a device and a hardware, and then you would feel offended like, oh, they stopped supporting my device, we will try to not cut it like that. But on the other hand,
granted to you at no charge, though we do thank donations.
Exactly.
We are granting to you at no charge.
At the end of the day, however, we have a 2 white base of what we try to say is there will be more devices over time, and so more people can use it. Unfortunately, it turned out that we have a huge amount of devices, but still the focus is on a few well-known devices that are being used by many people. And so it's really hard to support a device that's only used by 10 people on the planet, for example. So there is no decision made, also because of 2004 will have some requirements that not all devices might fulfill. And if it's in the end the performance that's not sitting well with it, or it just is too small RAM or whatsoever, that's also a reason why we might drop here or there. But we also might drop because of the work. Yeah. Yes,
I am
sure.
excited to see that when people maintaining devices in Ubuntu Touch were surveyed, they said they're excited about that maintainership, about having users and supporting them. So I am excited to think that as we move forward, we will be able to make this a better situation for all of us.
Exactly.
It's going to cause some hardship for a while, but the seeds are there. I think we've been talking about this long enough. People get it. People are really getting it. So
exactly.
I'm excited for the future.
But also 2 weeks later now, because we had the question in the last Q&A, no, there is still no list of devices that we are dropping, because we are not dropping anything at this moment.
Yeah. Oh, hey, that's a convenient question. Alfred, Whitezak asks, is it impossible to get KVM or VirtualBox running on Ubuntu Touch?
Maybe if you take a look back at, I think it was 2 or 3 episodes ago, I actually presented Pocket VMs, and you can actually use a virtual machine on your phone or tablet, not on Qualcomm devices, because they specifically don't allow you to use KVM. So can't do anything about that. But for many other devices, you can actually have accelerated virtualization functionality on your phone. So that is something. If your
Pocket VMs is located in the Ubuntu Touch Open Store.
Right, exactly.
Give it a try. Let's see. I thought I saw one more thing. Oh yeah, a lot of people have been asking about when Ubuntu Touch PinePhone Pro. Ubuntu Touch PinePhone Pro when. Of course, I have just said that I'm leaving for a while. We're not planning on looking at the PinePhone Pro at all until Ubuntu Touch based on Ubuntu 2004 is released. It is new and exciting hardware, I understand, and it's got some growing pains, between firmware and figuring out how this thing just likes to boot. We are going to selfishly wait for the community to resolve these problems, but only because we don't have the time to do it ourselves, especially now that we're losing myself. So I believe that an image for the PinePhone Pro will be around someday, assuming the interest continues to be here for it, but it won't even be looked at until Ubuntu Touch 2004, unless someone really, really wants to port 1604 to it, and in that case, all right, I guess I can't stop you.
Rather be quick though, because 2004 is around the corner, so the effort might not be that justified.
I wouldn't say that.
Please don't throw my project team under the bus, Florian.
No.
Yeah, it'll be a while yet, but there is forward progress, as I've shown today. So
super.
My work is left in their capable hands, and they have already decided to continue our slightly scrummy development sync meetings every week. They are open to the public, but if you disturb us, we will kick you out. So, I think that'll do it, though.
Great.
Perfect.
Yes, let's do it. Okay, so that'll be all for now, and it is still undecided whether the Ubuntu Touch Q&A will continue after this or not, or in what format or form it will. So, it'll probably be on hiatus for a little while, but we thank you all for watching for as long as you have. 116 episodes in. I'd highly recommend checking out episode 100 at any time you like. It feels really good. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. If you liked what we were talking about today and want to see if your device is supported, head over to devices.ubuntu-touch.io. And if yours isn't supported, it's going to need a custom image made for it. Go to the porting documentation at docs.ubports.com/porting to learn more. This does not apply to devices like the PinePhone or PinePhone Pro. The information there will need to be gleaned from sources, which is basically just me. But I'm accepting questions. Information otherwise is there. We have a lot of social media that you can check us out on, follow what we've been doing, including Facebook, Twitter, Pixarfed, Mastodon, LinkedIn, Instagram, and we also have a Telegram news channel. All of those are linked in the video description. We also have chat rooms on Telegram and Matrix at UBports and #UBports:matrix.org respectively. Or for longer forum content, you can find us on our forum at forums.ubports.com. It's been an exciting run. I have a feeling that we'll be back sometime soon. But for now, thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for your support of Ubuntu Touch and the UBports Foundation and community. We appreciate all of you, and we will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.